Rev up your engines!
I'm going to tell you why you should not buy a car with a CVT transmission if you live in a mountainous area. Or if, like me, you rent a car on vacation in a mountainous area. I recently went to Maine, beautiful place, unbelievable food, scenery is insane, but I rented a Focus. It was a good car, 4-cylinder engine, got great gas mileage, but it had that stupid CVT transmission. And the problem is, when you're in a mountainous area, going downhill, they freewheel. If you have a regular automatic transmission or a standard transmission, you can put it into a lower gear. So when you're going downhill, it won't freewheel and it'll just go at a certain speed. The CVT transmission was so bad, it isn't all that mountainous in Maine. It's not insane mountains like the Rocky Mountains or anything. I was at gradual hill, top of the hill, the speed limit's 40. So I'm going 40. I'm going downhill, I take my foot off the gas. By the time I made it to the bottom of the hill, and we're only talking about a hill that was maybe half a mile long, it was going 65 miles an hour when it got to the bottom. I had to have my foot on the brake while I was going downhill or it just kept going faster. And especially when you're doing curves and stuff, it would just keep accelerating going downhill. So if you live in an extremely mountainous area or like me, go on vacation and want to rent a car, my advice is stay away from these CVT transmissions because they're going to be freewheeling like that. You got to have your foot on the brake, and of course, you can't be going down like the Rocky Mountains for miles and miles and miles and miles with your foot on the brake. Yeah, it'll overheat the brakes to begin with. McFisher says, I got a Mazda Protege, 1999. It's leaking oil between the oil pan and the transmission. Probably got a bad rear main seal. The back of the engine, where the crankshaft spins, has an oil seal. And when that leaks, it'll leak between the oil pan and the transmission and drip down. And if that's the case, you either have to pull the engine or the transmission. It's usually easier and cheaper to pull the transmission off. But for years, I've been using the stuff AT205 reseal. Type in AT and then the number 205 reseal. Buy a can of that, put it in the engine oil. I've seen it work miracles and stop leaking. And the next time you change your oil, just put another can of the stuff in. It worked quite well. It's a polymer. It doesn't clog anything, and it works great. If that doesn't work, then you're going to have to pull the transmission off, and that's really expensive. Savage Moon says, hey, I'm looking at a 2018 Acura TLX with 31,000 miles as a first car. Would that be a good vehicle? If you can afford it, yeah, those are excellent vehicles, and only 31,000 miles is going to last quite some time. But as I always say, when you're buying a used car, trust no one. I mean zero. Trust no one. Pay a mechanic to check it out because it could have been wrecked, flooded, stolen. You have no idea. And we mechanics, when we hook up our $5,000 scan tools and go through that data, nothing can be hidden from that data. I had one a couple weeks ago that I did for a customer. It was an Acura, and I found all these things wrong. Even though the Carfax said it hadn't been in a wreck, I knew it had been in a wreck because I could see overspray under the car where they'd fixed parts and then they didn't cover it up, so the new paint was sprayed on suspension parts that should have been naked. So always have a mechanic check out a vehicle like that before you buy it. An independent mechanic, too. Don't go to a dealer and they say, well, we checked it out. No. Somebody who doesn't work for the people who are selling the car. You have them check it out. Crazy Capital says, my mom's '06 Toyota Sienna vibrates and roars and struggles to get up hills, but it's fine when it's on flat. All right. You have what's called a problem under load. When the engine is loaded with all that strain to go up a hill, the most common thing for that is first change the fuel filter. It's what, a 14-year-old car. Clogged fuel filter can do that. If it's not that, have the fuel pump pressure tested. It could be a weak fuel pump doing it. Now, if you really haven't taken care of the vehicle, something as dumb as a clogged air filter, if it's really clogged, can do it. So check the air filter, of course. And a dirty or worn mass airflow sensor can do that too. But always start with the obvious things and work it up. Even if it has really old spark plugs. I mean, that's a 14-year-old Toyota Sienna, but I've seen it where they still have the original spark plugs. And me just taking out these old worn spark plugs and putting new ones in could fix a problem like that sometimes. So check one of the spark plugs. Israel Vidal says, how good of a gas mileage is this for a 5.44 liter Ford Expedition? I took a trip and got 24.5 miles a gallon. That's as good as you're ever going to get. You must be a pretty good conservative driver on a big old V8 engine like that. But as you found out, they have improved how they work. You're getting 24.5 miles a gallon. I got customers in the past, you go with the original Expeditions, some of my customers were getting like 13 miles a gallon with those things. So yeah, no, you're getting good gas mileage. You're obviously a conservative driver too. Because I mean, I've driven those things around. I can get 10 miles a gallon if I drive like a maniac, even today. Garamaho, and he says, hey, my friends, I'm in a bit of a pickle. I got a brand new AC compressor, and I want to have it put on, but I can't find any mechanics that will install it because they said I bought the part. Theoretically, they're simple, but we're not Supermen. We can't see through all the metal parts to see if there's any problems inside. When you have an AC compressor go bad on a vehicle, a lot of times it goes bad not because just the compressor itself wore out, but there's other problems that cause the compressor going bad. So, if you just stick a compressor on a vehicle, rolling the dice, and you want to hope that it doesn't come up snake eyes on you and bite you. If you are changing the compressor, change the orifice tube, change the AC dryer accumulator, and if the compressor itself was locked up, the old one actually locked up physically and burnt the belt off, I would change the condenser in the front too. When I was a young mechanic, the condensers had pretty big holes. They flowed through quite well. Now they're skinny little flat ones, and if your compressor blows, it's going to throw metal into the condenser because that's where it blows first, the pressure. And those little metal pieces will clog. You can't flush them out because the way they cross flow, flushing machine is useless. If you can find a guy who are willing to change, say, the compressor and the orifice tube and the accumulator and gamble on the rest, go ahead, but he'll probably want you to sign something in writing that says, hey, if this doesn't work, don't blame me because I advise changing these other parts. XE Cloud, hey Scotty, recently I've been hearing knocking sound whenever I release my brakes. When you step on your brakes, that loads the suspension system. The brakes are locking, so the suspension's going to move, and if when you release the brakes you hear a knocking sound, something's worn. Now, a very common thing for that is worn strut mounts, because the struts are sitting like this and they go up and down to absorb shocks. When you brake, they jerk a little. The top is the strut mounts. They're made out of rubber. If they're worn, they'll push forward, and when you let go, they boing back in place and you hear a knocking sound. Check that, of course. Check ball joints, tie rods, any kind of stuff for wear. But the most common thing is worn strut mounts. Check that first. Plane to plane. Hi, I'll need a suggestion. Me and my friend are looking to do storm chasing in the near future. What should I get? I did a little video with my friend Hank, and he uses a Toyota RAV4. He actually likes the RAV4 best. He's not one of these crazy guys that's going to go off-road, put his life in danger. He wants to get good shots. He's not a scientist. He's not doing research. He's taking really good pictures of tornadoes. He loved his Toyota Camry, but some crackhead hit him someplace in North Texas and smashed and destroyed his car, and he had to total it because it was all bashed in from the crackhead running into him while he was just coming back from chasing the storm. So, any reliable little car. Now, if you're looking for safety, what you want is a big, heavy vehicle that's low to the ground, because you don't want something that's going to blow over. Well, that's the advantage of like a Roller or a Camry. They're relatively low to the ground, so they're going to be hard to tip over. You want something that isn't easy to tip over, in that case. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.